Shalom, Kal Halal, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, Bahashim Kakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of GMS, including the elders that came before them that taught us the truth. Shalom and salutations to all the brothers out pushing the word of truth and in sincerity, the hopeful elect tabernacle of David. To the Aquath that are listening and learning, being a pillar of rest, the 144,000, the one-third, the hopeful elect of Israel. I'm the brother Yahshua. I'm back with the World War III daily update. Shalom and salutations to you as well. We're going to start right here at Revelation 11 and 8, going into spiritual Egypt. Spiritually Egypt. Okay, this is talking about Babylon the Great city, which is America. So America, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. All right? Revelation 11 and 8, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city. This is talking about the Israelites who don't even know that they're Israelites. That's why they're dead to the world. Nobody is putting these bodies in graves, letting them know who they are lying in the street. They're just dead to the world of the great city, which is America, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. I don't really have to explain this part with all the rights and the legislation being passed to protect certain people. And Egypt. Egypt, why? Why is there an Egyptian pyramid on the back of that dollar? And that's the same place where we, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, Seminole Indians, the true children of Israel, were enslaved to the Egyptian. What are we doing here? We're picking the fruit. We're picking the cotton, right? Well, that was years ago. We're still slaves. Get it right. Right? Where also our Lord was crucified. I won't. That's a different a lesson there, going into how they crossed out the Messiah, if you will. So anyway, Egypt, right? Spiritual Egypt is Babylon, the great city, which is America. Now, when you go to Isaiah and you read about Egypt, which is America, you understand that they're planning something here, all right? They're planning for America to implode, and they're going to send in UN troops, okay? That's why is America so in bed with the UN, right? Well, they're going to deputize a bunch of immigrants or migrants coming up from the southern border, put a light blue helmet on them and tell them to get busy. Isaiah 19 and 2, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. The migrants coming up from wherever they're coming from, whatever country they're coming from, are being promised citizenship, a job, money, the job being the military. What military do you think? The UN. UN peacekeeper, right? And I'm speaking as a man. I'm just connecting the dots. But part of that agreement, if you join the military, you become an instant what? Egyptian. We're going to give you citizenship. You become a Babylonian. You become an American upon signing that deal. So at that point, the moment that you become a citizen, you're an American too. So that would be the Americans against the Americans. And they're going to, speaking a different language, they're going to hold you in that community and not like, oh, you can't, it's a lockdown. You can't leave. You're locked in, right? Going into what? A man shall desire, right? Let's get that. What is it, 15? To go into a city and shall not be able. Where are we at? We're just going to read that. Why won't he be able to go into the next city? Well, there's a checkpoint right here, and you can't go to the next town. Second Ezra 15 and 17, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Why? UN troops. It's Glenn Beck an hour ago. Chip Roy, RIP's Biden's official threat to send U.S. troops to war with Russia. Listen to the language they're using, specifically about the UN. Okay? UN peacekeeping force.
We have Chip Roy on with us now. Hi, Chip. How are you?
Hey, Glenn. How are you?
I have a lot of stuff to ask you about. That first of all, let's start with the UN. What prompted this from you guys, and what is the plan?
Well, first of all, it's not a new concept, obviously, for those of us who hated the United Nations for a long time and believe that it's a colossal waste of money. $12.5 billion of American, both tax dollars and borrowed money, that's gone to the UN as recent as 2021, okay, in 1 year. Mike Lee and I were talking about this, so disgusted about what we've seen at the United Nations, their ridiculousness in terms of how they treated Israel, voting not to condemn Hamas, their ridiculousness of funding Hamas through UNRWA, which is, done in the name of refugees, but ends up funding terrorist entities like Hamas. Their Human Rights Council, which is a complete sham. They put all of the worst human rights violators on it. Funding the, China one-child policy. I mean, you can't even begin to do it. And then you just saw the article yesterday that Mike Lee tweeted out. Mike and I, he introduced the Senate version. I introduced the House version to totally just defund the United Nations and get out. And Mike tweeted out a picture of an article about how all these UN workers have been raping children in Africa and other places around the world. And look, it's just a organization devoid of soul. They don't believe in Western civilization. They are not our friend.
Hold on, that's the UN that are coming here to keep you in the lockup called martial law. Did you hear that?
We fund it. It's just a joke, and we shouldn't.
Is this something that you think could gain traction and win?
Well, I mean, not in the instant. I think we need to get really serious about it. I will say, okay, to the credit of the House, I'm pretty, vicious in my condemnation of the failures of House Republicans. But in fairness, right, we're dealing with frickin' a Senate that doesn't want to do anything in a White House that's not just incompetent but evil. We passed appropriations bills at our state and foreign operations that would have defunded a lot, not all of it, it wasn't perfect, but it defunded a lot of these terrible things like UNRWA, like the Chinese policy. Mario Diaz-Balart in Florida, he worked with us on that. But it's jammed, it's just sitting in the Senate, right? The Senate won't do anything with it. So we introduced this bill as a standalone, basically to kind of one-up it all and send a message that you have serious members of the Senate and the House saying, wait a minute, we should not be sending $12.5 billion to the United Nations. So, we'll have to keep working the issue, but I know you agree and I know your listeners agree.
Okay, so the next thing is the spending bills and the fact that this defense bill, first of all, if I'm not mistaken, it was yesterday that Lloyd Austin said, if you fail to pass this Ukraine aid bill, U.S. troops on the ground in Ukraine are likely. What kind of threat is that?
Yeah, so let's take them in order, right? You're talking about the supplemental spending bill at the moment, right? That includes on the Democrat side, right? Because the president put it forward. It has a massive amount of spending, over $100 billion, $60 billion additional funding for Ukraine. I think it's $10 or $15 billion of additional spending at the border, which would just be used to process more people, not change the policies. More spending for Taiwan, more spending generally. And so we would oppose that. And yes, in a briefing the other day, the secretary alluded to, saying, if you guys don't do this, effectively we're going to be committing American troops to war. Now, if you're being less cynical, you'd say his position is that if we don't push back on Putin now, we'll get drawn into war that involves our men and women in uniform. To which my response is, no, if you keep carrying out your incompetent policies, where you refuse to promote American energy, where you refuse to actually sanction, for example, Iran, you allow Iran to provide oil to China, you take all of the positions that are empowering our enemies, then you say we need to fund a proxy war to stop those enemies, or you're going to send our men and women to war. And oh, by the way, they wanted to draft your daughters, which I proudly stood up and stopped. That's the truth of this administration. So we're going to stand up and stand athwart that. At least conservatives are, and I hope Mike Johnson will keep doing what he's been doing. I mean,
Is that enough war for you? Okay, this is a civil war. I will set the Isaiah 19:2. I will set the Egyptians against the Americans against the Americans. It's called a civil war. A civil what? War. That's going to be going on simultaneous with World War III. Okay? So that's just a little update I thought I'd bring. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Let me go out with wars. Okay. 2nd Ezra 16:17. Woe is me, who will deliver me in those days, the beginning of wars. Salaki, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars. And the power shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? So here come the wars, y'all, including the one on American soil. Don't get it twisted. All right, they're saying it hasn't been so hot. There's flames and fires everywhere, was the language, I believe. Anyway, keep your eyes peeled with that. We'll see you tomorrow. We hope that the elect will edify you, brothers and sisters. Shalom.